Antiwar coalition, also Black is Back. Mayor Bloomberg, our mayor, who is the richest New Yorker, the 8th richest person in the United States, and the 17th richest person in the world, just announced in his City of the State address that Manhattan is now the growth engine for New York City. So if you live in New York City and in neighborhoods, quote, marginalized neighborhoods before the height of the real estate boom, you know what that means. It means that Manhattan will become a whiter hue, and that, in fact, Blacks and Latinos, particularly Blacks, are being pushed out. And I'm going to tie this in, how this fits in with our discussion here, the cost of war at home, because we can see it so magnified, so clearly, and so viciously, and so evilly done in New York City. In New York City, on any given night, we have 38,000 people sleeping in the city shelter system. Of those numbers, 17% are children. The fastest growing population in the city shelter system is, in fact, Black female head of household with children under 5 years of age. If you are a homeless person, and remember, rents are unaffordable in New York City, even for middle-class whites, middle-class Blacks, middle-class anyone. Who can afford to pay $3,500 for a one-bedroom apartment? That's a mortgage anywhere. But if you are a working family in New York City and you live in a city shelter system, you have to pay rent. You have to pay rent. Mayor Bloomberg has offered one-way tickets. This is for 2 years now. If you're homeless, we want you out of this city. We will give you a one-way ticket wherever you come from, whether it's Europe, Africa, wherever you come from, one-way ticket. But you will not return to New York City because we have no recidivism in the city shelter system. And what I want to talk about is the Pentagon and the spending that the left in the anti-war movement really talk about. We have to talk about a reduction of the military budget, a significant reduction in the military budget. And I just want to say from the outset, I am so delighted that I am in the company of those who do not worship Barack Obama, that you have seen through this man for what he is, for what he has always been, because remember, we bestowed on him this liberal persona when, in fact, throughout his campaign, he was very clear. I am to the center and to the right of center. Don't confuse me. He may have given us lip service on various policies so that he can slip through a little bit, but he's always been very clear that he was there to serve his imperialist masters. And embarrassingly so, he is not really part of the clubhouse, and we have seen that with the rampant and rancid racism that has reigned on his head, and exposing the gigantic overspending of the Pentagon that runs the vast military-industrial complex that the late conservative Republican President Dwight Eisenhower warned the American people about, as did President Franklin Roosevelt. Millman's analysis spoke not only to the massive overspending and theft of military allocation in the federal budget, but how this waste contributed to the deindustrialization of the U.S. with the loss of millions of jobs and the crippling of investments in rebuilding the crumbling physical infrastructure of the U.S. Mellman exposed in detail the massive redundancy and costlessness of various and new weapon systems at a price that has had huge adverse impact on the growing domestic needs of the U.S. population. Mellman cited among an impressive record of studies and data, the most prominent from the 2005 report card for Americans' infrastructure that was issued by the American Society of Civil Engineers. The Engineering Society cited a budget of $1.33 trillion needed for the repairs of 12 categories of public works, including schools, drinking water systems, sewage systems, airports, public transit, bridges, and roads. The report card is an assessment by professional engineers of the nation's status in 15 categories of infrastructure. Today, there has been little, if any, improvements on America's infrastructure that continues to be poorly maintained, unable to meet current and future demands, and in many cases, deadly unsafe, such as the broken levees in New Orleans. In its 2009 report card, ASCE estimated the nation still has a D average. The deteriorating conditions and inflation have added hundreds of billions of dollars to the total cost of repairs and needed upgrades. The American Society of Civil Engineers' current estimate is $2.2 trillion, up from $1.6 trillion in 2005. Without a doubt, the military economy drains the civilian economy. Deindustrialization, the closing of U.S. factories, has left not only millions without work, but it has greatly diminished the U.S. production capability necessary for infrastructure repair, revitalization, and new construction. Not nearly enough budget allocation or stimulus money has been proposed by the Obama administration because, as Melman noted, at the beginning of the 21st century, every major aspect of American life is being shaped by the permanent war economy. And so here we have people so engrossed in this historic moment, so consumed with the historic significance of it. As Glenn Ford said this morning, they could not bring themselves to ask anything of this president. It was just enough to have him there. We had 3 forums in Harlem at the time of his election, and we had everybody sort of calling us from Wall Street and whatever, and what is this and all of this, and we called it Obama Mania, way before CNN did, way before. The house was packed because everybody wanted to know and understand and to really try to gauge or have an understanding of this historic moment and how significant was it and how significant was it not? Was this really too good to be true? Well, we all know that it was too good to be true. How can you have a white left against a black president? Something that this country has never had before. And who are you, as I have been told so many times, to be against Barack Obama? This is a historic moment. How can you deny your community? How can you deny history? This fate, the stroke of fate of coming together at this important moment. But we knew we had to do what we had to do. Because in the movement, what is our role? Our role is, if we are going to claim falsely, as in this is sort of cultural imperialism in and of itself, how are we going to claim that we are the vanguard of a movement when it is difficult for us, for political expedience that will only aid the Democratic Party, which is no different from the Republican Party, by not having a critique of the most historic moment of the election of a president, and as was put in context for us this morning, in a country that is on its deathbed. You can see the rattling of the gasp of the death of this empire. The evidence is all around us. The failure in Iraq, the failure in the Middle East. The Palestinian issue isn't going to go away. Israel, the sheriff in the Middle East, it's not going to go away. So listen, let me just do a couple of numbers here about the money. Now, we have money. They talk about the fact that this country doesn't have any money to meet its domestic needs. But we remember, what was that, in 2001 when Donald Rumsfeld, of all people, talked about the $2.3 trillion missing from the Pentagon? They couldn't account for it. And one Pentagon official said, "Are you kidding me? You can find $48 billion in loose change just by going around in the corridors of the Pentagon." This is just the tip of the iceberg, because I say to you, they are stealing us blind, and they have always done it. And if we are in debt, it is not only because of the collapse of the economy, but that collapse can be attributed to the grand scale theft of the U.S. Treasury, of our money. We need to concern ourselves with educating our people, agitating, and organizing. Power concedes nothing without a demand. It never has. It never will. Let's keep those demands on the table in the most militant fashion, and we can only do that by hitting the streets in principled unity. That's what the left must strive for. Thank you.